Begin today the Gemara on Daf Yud Amud Aleph, the first line where it says V'ha Chazara Da'iraisa. So we're in the middle of an Indian here. The Gemara quoted a Braisa before on Daf Tes Amud Aleph that's comparing the halachas of a get and the halachas of a shtar shichra, a document that's written for the freedom of an Evet Kanani. And the Braisa there mentioned that they're compared in three things. There's the halacha of b'fanai nichtav, b'fanai nachtam. You have to testify about the kashrus of the get and the shtar. Then the halacha that an aid kuti, which is, we'll see soon in the next Mishnah who a kuti is, that signs the get and the shtar are going to be kosher, unlike other shtaris that are not kosher. And then the third thing is regarding a shtar that's brought in a Goyish court, that's written in a Goyish court. So regarding all other shtaris, it's written in a non-Jewish court and it's signed by Goyim. The document can't be used at all. Whereas, again, could be used, that is. But regarding all other documents, it's kosher, it's good. But when it comes to a get and a shtar shichror, it can't, if it's signed by Goyim in a Goyish court, it cannot be used. And the Gemara explained, we learned yesterday, that includes even in a case where this get, although it's signed by non-Jewish Eidim, but there's going to be Eidei Mesira. There'll be Eidim present when you're going to give the get to the wife. So seemingly, even if there's Goyim signed in it, but Rabbi Lazar says that the main Eidim that we rely upon for the authenticity of this document, or that it should be a get, is that you have Eidim that are there when you give it. Nevertheless, Chachamim will geyser that it should not be used. Those are the three comparisons. So the Gemara we learned on Daf Tes asked the question that there are other things that a get and a shtar shikhr are compared to. There's the halacha of lishma, there's the halacha of mechuber, there's other halachas that are the same. Why is the Braisa leaving this out? So the answer the Gemara gave is that this Braisa is only bringing up the comparison of the two when it comes to halachas that Chachamim instituted, midrabanan. But the fact that they have the same halachas minat Torah, that the Braisa does not bring up. So now the Gemara continues and asks on this. Fragt the Gemara, how could you say that this Braisa doesn't bring up comparisons between the get and the shtar shichror regarding something which is minat Torah? But v'ha chazare da'iraisa, the halacha of chazare, which is brought afterwards in the Braisa Rab Meir. In the continuation of the Braisa, Rab Meir brings up the case of chazare. That is when a person sends a get to his wife or sends a shtar to his evet, and before it reaches their hand, he wants to retract from this. He wants to retract from the Gittin, from the divorce, or from the freedom. And Rab Meir says that by both, they're the same, that he can have charata, he can be chayzer. Now, this is a halacha minat Torah. This is not some kind of institution, Chachamim instituted. The Ketani, and it's brought here in the Braisa. Rab Meir, in the continuation of the Braisa, says this comparison between them. So how can you say that the Braisa is not mentioning a comparison between them, which is minat Torah? So Ella, the Gemara, gives us a new answer to understand why the Braisa lists only these things and not others. Ki Katani, what is the Braisa here comparing them only regarding the things that are milse de lesa b'kiddushin, those things that we find regarding Gittin and regarding the shtar shikhr, and we do not find them regarding kiddushin. Milse de isa b'kiddushin, but halachas that are found regarding kiddushin as well, like Katani, that's not brought up over here. So Rashi explains, when it comes to the halacha of lishma and mechuber, one of the ways to be mekadesh isha is also with a shtar, similar to a get and the shtar shikhr that we're talking about. And just like a get has to be written lishma, and it has to be written on material that's not attached to the ground, we compare kiddushin to Gittin. So it learned out from a hekish, v'yatza, v'hoisa, that it also has to be written in the same way. So the halachas that apply to kiddushin and to Gittin, that's not mentioned here in this Braisa. The Braisa is only mentioning those halachas that are unique specifically to Gittin and to the get and to the shtar shikhr. And Rashi goes through over here explaining how all these halachas that are mentioned here in the Braisa are only by a get. The halacha of b'fanai nichtav, b'fanai nachtam, that's something that applies only when a get is being delivered, that you have to testify that the get is kosher, so that the Baal, if he comes later to be ma'arer, to challenge the kashrus of it, that applies only by a get. By kiddushin, there's no such a halacha at all. The other halacha that the Braisa brought regarding a kuti, signing a get, or a shtar shikhr that's kosher, that also applies only to a get. As we'll see soon in the Gemara, why is a kuti, which is usually not kosher to sign any document, it's only kosher regarding a get and a shtar shikhr. And the third halacha brought in the Braisa also regarding the shtar that's written in a Goyish court, and you have Yidden that are Eidim, on the Mesira of it, and Chacham were geyser that the get is possible, that also applies only to Gittin, not by Kedushin. By Kedushin, if you have Eidei Mesira, Eidim that are there when you give that shtar for the Isha, the Kedushin will be good, and the Chacham did not institute to passel the Kedushin because she's an Eishes Ish. So the three halachas that are brought in this Braise are only by Gittin and by Shtar Shichra, not by Kedushin. The halachas that relate to Kedushin as well are not counted here. What the Gemara asks on this, but v'hachazara gufa, the question that we just brought up regarding the fact that a person sends a shliach with a get or with a shtar shichra and he can retract from this before it reaches their hand. So this itself, isa bi kedushin, this applies by kedushin as well. What happens if you send a shliach with money or with a shtar to be mekadesh isha? And along the way, you decide that you want to retract from this. Can you? Yes, you can. And again, it's based on the same principle that we learned yesterday, that the Isha is not Mukadeshes until it reaches her hands. And you can't say that the Shliach is automatically Zeiche in this Kedushin for the Isha, even without asking her, because it's a loss for her. Kedushin is considered to be something which there's a certain loss in this, because what happens when a woman gets married? On one hand, yes, she's very happy that she's married, but at the same time, though, now she becomes forbidden for everyone else. So you can't accept the Kedushin for an Isha without her permission. So before it reaches her hands, you can be chayzer from this. So this is a halacha that applies to Kedushin as well. So how could the Gemara say that the Braise is mentioning only halachas that don't connect to Kedushin? Answers the Gemara, b'shlichis balkarcha. However, there is a certain detail regarding the shlichis, sending a shliach with a shtar or with a get that is balkarcha, which is against the will of the Isha. When it comes to divorce, so you don't need the woman's consent. Or when it comes to freeing an Eved, you don't need his consent for this either. The Begeidishin Isa, so this is something that applies only by Geidishin, and that is what we're comparing to a shtar shichar as well, or by Kedushin lesser. But by Kedushin, there's no such a thing. There's no such a shlichus where you could send someone to be Mekadesh and Isha against her will. One of the basic halachas of marriage of Kedushin is midaita, that she must agree to this. So the Braise here, which is talking about these halachas, and it's mentioning also this halacha of chazara, that's not shaykh, the way it's shaykh by Geidishin is not shaykh by Kedushin. Because by the Geidishin, there's a unique halacha of shlichus, even balkarcha, even against the will of the woman. Okay, Mishnah. Here the Mishnah will elaborate more on this halacha that we just learned about the kuti that signs the get. Kol get sheyesh olav eid kuti, a get that has one eid, a kuti that signed it, pasal, will be pasal. So that when it says in the Mishnah get, it doesn't refer to a get for a woman, but it refers to any document, any other shtar. Chutz migitei noshim v'shechrurei avodim. Besides a get for a divorce and the shtar shikhr for an eved, even with a kuti that signed it, it will be kosher. So let me again remind you what a kuti is. A kutim are those that in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, Cherev brought them to Eretz Yisrael, and they wore megayer. But they were only megayer after they were attacked by lions. So there's a machlekes in the Gemara that's brought in a few places. Are they considered to be geirei emes? Are they real Geidim or Geirei Aroyes? They only were Megayer because of the fear that they had from being attacked by these lions, but they really are not considered to be Geidim. This Mishnah here is following the opinion that says that they're Geirei Emes, that they are Geidim. Otherwise, if they sign a get, if they're Goyim and their Geidis is nothing, then the get would not be kosher. So obviously this Mishnah holds that they're Geidim. But regarding any other documents, so Rashi here says that we suspect them for not being honest, so therefore regarding all documents, their signatures are worthless, even though they're Yidden. But when it comes to a get, as the Gemara will explain, there's a reason why, if there's just one kuti that signed the get, we do trust them. Brings the Mishnah here, Maise Shevi'u Lifnei Rabbi Gamliel L'Kfar Usnoid. There was a story where they brought in front of Rabbi Gamliel to this town called Usnoi, get Isha, a get for a woman, v'hoyu edav edei kutim, and the edim signed on this get were kutim v'hichsher. And Rabbi Gamliel was machsher this get. Okay, so now the Gemara will explain what's the reason over here that a get for an Isha is different than any other document, that if a kuti signs it, it'll be kosher. So the Gemara begins with first bringing up certain opinions about whether we can trust a kuti or not. Fragt the Gemara, Mani Masnisin, who's the Tana of our Mishnah? Loit Tanakame, V'loy Rabbi Lazar, V'loy Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. It's not any of the following Tanoim that are mentioned here in this Braise, because the Tanya we learned in the Braise, Matzah's kuti, a kuti that bakes matzah. Muteres, you're allowed to eat it on Pesach, and we're not concerned that he's not careful with the halacha of matzah, so this matzah may actually be chametz. That's the first point. And on another point, you could also be yotze the mitzvah of eating matzah on Pesach. In order to be yotze the mitzvah of matzah, it's not enough the fact that it's not chametz. You have to actually bake it l'shem mitzvahs matzah, which is learned from the pasuk ushmartem es hamatzos. So the kutim, according to the Tanakhama here, know this halacha as well, and they keep this halacha to bake the matzah l'shem mitzvahs matzah, so you can be yotze the mitzvah of matzah. Rabbi Lazar Aiser. Rabbi Lazar says, no, we cannot eat this matzah. You can't be yotze the mitzvah with this. Because they're not baki in the details of the mitzvahs, and therefore we're afraid that the matzah may actually be chametz. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says that the rule is as follows: Kol mitzvah she'achziku ba kutim. The mitzvahs that we know that the kutim learned and they know the halachas. So then, harbe medaktekim ba yosem Yisrael. They were actually even more careful with fulfilling these mitzvahs properly, even more than Yidden. So, but then there are those mitzvahs that they were not careful about. Right? So Rashi here brings from the Gemara in Chulin that says that Rab Shimon Gamliel is saying that even mitzvahs that are not min haTorah. The example that Bryce was speaking about was matzah, a mitzvah min haTorah. But according to Rab Shimon Gamliel, even a mitzvah that's not min haTorah, even a mitzvah midrabanan, but if we know that the kutim are careful about this and they learned about this, so then that we can rely on them. They're actually medaktik even more than Yidden B'chlal. Those are the three opinions in this brisa. So now, who's our Mishnah here? Frak the Gemara Mani. Who's our Mishnah that says that all documents signed by a kuti are pasul, but the get isha that's signed by a kuti is kosher? If we're following the Tanakhama's opinion, afile shar shtaris nami. So even when it comes to any document, we should be able to rely on a kuti, because this is just like matzah, which is a mitzvah min haTorah that we rely on them. So to say eidos, to sign a document, so this is min haTorah, to be trusted, not to lie. So we should be able to rely on them for every document. If we're following Rabbi Lazar's opinion, so then I feel like get isha nami like. Even for the get of an isha, we should not rely on them, as Rabbi Lazar says. You can't rely on a kuti for matzah, so you can't rely on him to say honest testimony. The signature is worthless. Now, and if our Mishnah is following Rab Shimon Gamliel's opinion, so what's the story here? If they know the halachas and they're careful about this, so then afilu shar shtaris nami. So the signature of a kuti should be accepted for any document. And if they're not careful with their signature and we can't trust them, so then I feel a get isha namiloi. So then even the get for an isha should also, their signature on it should not be accepted at all. Now the Gemara suggests to say as follows: if you'll argue and say Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, the Mishnah here is following Rab Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion. And the fact is that they are careful when it comes to a get. This is something that they know about, and they're careful about putting their signature on a get. So for that, we trust them. But regarding any other documents, they are not careful about this. They don't know the details and the halachas to be careful about putting their signature on a regular document, and therefore, they're not trusted. And that's what our Mishnah is saying here. But asks the Gemara, but Yachi, if that's the case, if we're Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, so then my iri echad. Why does the Mishnah say that only one kuti that signs a get will the get be kosher? Afil treinami. Even if two kutim sign a get, it should also be kosher, if the point here is that they're careful about this. Allah Muhammad Rabbi Lazar. Why did Rabbi Lazar say, and this is Rabbi Lazar and Amayra, so why did he say about the pshat in our Mishnah, Lo yichshiru boi ela eid echad kuti bilvad, that even for a get, isha, it's only kosher if one eid kuti signs it, not two. But why is that? If we say that they're achsuk, they know the halachas and they're careful about it, so it should be kosher even if two sign. Answers the Gemara, La'olam Rabbi Lazar. So really, the pshat in our Mishnah is, we really have to say that it's Rabbi Lazar of the Braise before that says that we cannot trust a kuti for matzah, and so as well regarding shtaris, a signature of a kuti, really we cannot trust a kuti. So why over here in our Mishnah, by the get of an isha, are we trusting him? The answer is Kagain the Chosim Yisrael Lebesayf. In the signature of the get, so there's the signature of the kuti first, and then below his signature there's the signature of another yid, and that is a reason to be able to trust the signature of the kuti. Why? The ilav, the kuti chaver have, because if not for the fact that this kuti is a chaver, he's a friend, or which over here means that he's trusted, his signature is reliable. The Yisrael, the Yid that signed below his signature, would not leave space and allow this kuti to sign before him. So therefore, by a get, if it's one signature of the kuti, and then below it is the signature of a Yid, we can trust the signature of the kuti. But the Gemara asks on this, but if this is the point there, that there's another signature of a Yid together with the kuti, so then afilu shtar shtaris nami. We should say the same thing regarding every shtar, that there's the signature of the kuti, then the signature of the Yisrael. So the Yisrael would not sign below the kuti if the kuti is not trusted. Elo, so what's your answer? Why can't you rely on the fact that you have a signature of Yisrael below the kuti regarding every shtar? Because Amrinon, that's not a proof. It doesn't show anything. Because we'll say as follows: Rav Cheshavak Laman de Kashish Minei. Could be that this Yisrael that signed below the kuti, he really signed the document first. So if he signed it first, why did he leave a space above his signature for someone else to sign there? Because he figured there's someone else here that's in the room that's more important than me, that's older than me. Let his signature be first. So he left some space for someone else that's older than him. That's another Yisrael to sign the document. But then what ended up happening? That individual that he left the space for didn't end up signing the document, and the kuti signed the document. But you didn't leave that space there for the kuti. You weren't relying on the kuti. So that's why regarding every document, the fact that the signature of the Yisrael is below the kuti does not prove anything that this kuti is reliable. So if so, hachanami, say the same thing regarding every get, that Rav Cheshavek Laman the Kashish Minei, the Yisrael signed the get. He left space for another Yisrael that's older than him to sign above him, and then he left. And the Bezdin or the husband decided to tell the kuti to sign it. And you didn't even see that the kuti is signing it. So there's no reason to say that because the Yisrael signed, that's an indication that the kuti signature is reliable. So but we're back to our question. Why are we making a distinction in our Mishnah between a get isha and all other documents that dafke by a get isha, we rely on the signature of a kuti? Rav Papa answers and explains, so Yisai Meres, the halacha of our Mishnah is a source that teaches us that Eidei Haget, when it comes to the Eidim that sign on a get, Ein Chais Min Zeh B'loi Zeh. They don't sign the get, one without the other being present and seeing them signing, and the signatures are together. So therefore, that's your answer. When it comes to every other document, possibly the Yisrael signed, he left an empty space, he thought another Yid is signing it there, and he left the room, and then the kuti ended up signing it. So the fact that the Yisrael signature is below the kuti doesn't prove anything. By a get, they signed together. So the Yisrael saw the kuti signing it, and that is a sign that this kuti is reliable. So the Gemara explains, my time. Why is it that by a get of an Isha, the two Eidim are there together and they sign together? Ravashi, so Ravashi explained, Gezeire mishum kulchem. This is a Gezeire Chachamim decree, it's a takana of the Chachamim because of the case of kulchem. What does it mean, the case of kulchem? There's a Mishnah later in the Masechta which says that many times what happens is a husband is not present there together with his wife to go and sign and write and sign the get and hand and take care of everything. So he tells shluchim, kisvu tnu, go write and sign the get. So let's say he tells this to more than one person. Go and take care of this for me. He tells a bezdin, tells a group of people, go take care of the matter for me, write and sign the get for my wife. What's the halacha? One person writes the get and two sign. They don't have to all sign it. But what's if he added kulchem? I want all of you to be involved in this matter and all of you to go and take care of this get. So then they all have to sign the get. So because when you say kulchem, they all have to sign, Chachamim will geyser that when there's a signature on the get, all the people involved that are there that are signing the get should be there together, to sign together. So that when he does say kulchem, so one person should not be left out of signing. Because if one person is left out, you can end up with a get that's going to be totally puzzled, even if you have two signatures on it, but someone that was supposed to sign a get did not sign. So because of that, Chacham V'Geizer, that people signing a get should gather and be there together. So by a get, the Yisrael and the Kuti that are signing the get are signing together, so therefore we can trust the signature of the Kuti, and that's only by a get and by a shtar shichror, not by any other document. Gufe, here's this halacha itself to go back to what we brought before. Rabbi Lazar said, Lo yichshiru b'yale eid echad kuti b'lvad. This get, which was signed by a kuti, is only kosher if one eid kuti signed, but not if two signed. My kamash malon. So the Gemara asks, why did Rabbi Lazar have to spell this out? Tanina, it says it clearly in the Mishnah. Kol get sheyesh olav eid kuti, a get that has a signature of one eid kuti. So again, kol get means every other document, not the get for an isha. So then pasal. So that will be puzzle. And then the Mishnah continues, but for a get isha, it's kasha, but it says clearly in the Mishnah only one eid. So we know that it's not two. Answers the Gemara, if it was only the language of the Mishnah, Hava Mina would have said, that really even 2 kutim that sign a get is also kosher. The only reason the Mishnah is saying that 1 by a get isha is going to be kosher, because it wanted to tell you the chiddush, but that by every document, even if only 1 kuti signs it, it's also not going to be kosher. You may think that by every other document, as long as there's 1 Yisrael below the signature of the kuti, as we just explained before, maybe it should be kosher. So that's the chiddush of our Mishnah, that by every document, 1 is not kosher. But I would think when it comes to a get isha, maybe 2 is also kosher. Kamash Malon. So that's why Rabbi Lazar is teaching us pshat in the Mishnah that by a get, only 1/8 kuti that signs is kosher. Frag the Gemara, but if 2 kutim sign a get isha, is it not kosher? But v'hakatani, the Mishnah continues and brings a story. Ma'aseh ve'yaviu lefnei Rabbi Gamliel of Kfar Osnai, the get isha was brought to Rabbi Gamliel in this town Osnai. Get isha v'hayu eidav eidei kutim, and the 2 witnesses that signed it were eidim, and they were both kutim ve'hichsher, and he said that they're kosher. So it's clearly the story is with both were eidim, were kutim. Amar Abaye, so Abaye answers, Tini eidai. So you have to change the word in the Mishnah. In the story that happened with Rabbi Gamliel, it should say eidav plural, but eidai, there was 1 eid that was a kuti, and therefore it's kosher. Rava Amar Rava answers, la'olam trei, that really you have to have 2 eidim. Again, not have to, but really Rabbi Gamliel is telling you that even if you have 2 eidim that are kutim, it'll also be kosher. Rabbi Gamliel miflik palik. Rabbi Gamliel argues with the Tanakam. Rabbi Gamliel says even 2 eidim that are kutim will also be kosher. In other words, that the two eidim kutim are trusted. You don't need the signature of the Yisrael together with the kuti to prove that this kuti is trusted. He holds that the kutim are trusted. And is missing in the Mishnah, and this is how you have to read the Mishnah. Rabbi Gamliel argues with the Tanakama, and he's machsher b'shnayim. He says even 2 eidim kutim are also kosher, and on that it brings umayis tanami shevil lefnei Rabbi Gamliel lekfar esnoi get isha v'hoyu eidav eidei kutim. Both of them were kutim and vehichsher. Rabbi Gamliel, as his opinion was, he was machsher this get with 2 eidim that are kutim. We continue with the next Mishnah that brings the other halacha that we learned before about the shtar that's in a goyish court. Any document that comes from a goyish court, so even if it's a legal document in a goyish court and the signatures on it are goyim as well, this document is valid, it can be used for any money transaction. Chutz migitei noshim v'shechrurei avadim. But except a document that's for get isha or for the shichrur of an eved, so signed by goyim, it cannot be used. Rab Shimon says, af eluk sheidim. No, even for a get isha, it's also kosher when it's in a goyish court with goyish signatures. Leihuskaru ela bizman shenasu behedyet. This that was mentioned in the Bismedrash, that for a get isha, you can't use it if it's with goyish signatures. That's not if it was written in a proper court. Then it will be kosher. But if it was signed by hedyotim, if it was just written and signed by just a guy off the street, then it was said that to get isha will be possible. But not if it's written in a court. Then Rab Shimon says it will be kosher. The Gemara will explain the basis of Rab Shimon's opinion.
The eidim on it are what?
Yeah, the goyish eidim, and it'll still be kosher. We learned already before. The Gemara mentioned. We'll see later in the Gemara that Rab Shimon's opinion is based on Rabbi Lazar that says eidei mesira karti, that the main eidim are the ones that are there when you give over the get. So even if there's goyim on the shtar, it's going to be kosher. Zok the Gemara kapasik v'tani. The Mishnah says a clear halacha without any distinctions regarding any document, a legal document in a goyish court with goyish witnesses. It's all going to be kosher. Loishna mecher. Loishna matana. Doesn't make a difference if we're talking about a document that's used for a sale and a document that's being used for a gift. Now, what does the Gemara really mean here by the difference between a document of a sale or the document of a gift? By a sale, so the actual transaction is taking effect by the kinyan other than this document itself. For example, he's giving money. Money itself creates a kinyan. So it's being paid for. So because it's being paid for, that creates the actual kinyan. The acquisition takes effect. So what is the document being used for? The document is what's called a shtar raya. It's just a proof for this transaction that already has taken effect. What's a shtar matana though? Shtar matana is there was nothing else done for this transaction to take effect. The actual acquisition is coming into effect through this document. This document is what brings the actual acquisition. That's the difference here. So therefore the Gemara now asks, when it comes to a shtar that's being used for a sale, that was already a kinyan otherwise, so Mechiyav Zuzi Kamayu, when you give money in front of this court, who dekana, that created the acquisition already. Ushtare Rayabamu. So the document being written there is just as a proof for this. The Ilayav, so therefore why do we trust this document written in a court, a legal document? The reason is because the Ilayav Zuzi Kamayu, because even in a Goyish court, we can trust them for this, because they have a certain reputation that they want to keep. Ilayav Zuzi Kamayu lo have if you didn't pay and there wasn't a proper sale, so then they would not want to look bad and to ruin their reputation to allow this legal document to be signed for this acquisition. So therefore, a legal document is a proper proof for this sale that took place. But a document that's being written for a gift, and there was no other action done for the actual acquisition itself. So b'mai kokani, what is bringing about the actual kinyan itself? Lav b'hai shtar, isn't it this shtar itself, writing a document and giving it to the buyer, that in itself is the act of a kinyan that creates the kinyan itself. So if it's with this shtar itself, but this shtar itself that's being signed by goyish witnesses in a legal court, isn't this shtar a piece of broken earthenware, meaning the shtar itself has no power and has no validity as the koyach of a shtar min ha-Torah? It can be used as a proof because we have a svara, we have a chazaka that a goyish court does not want to lose its reputation, so therefore as a proof it could be used. But to say that the shtar itself has a kashrus, that it could create, as a koyach to create a kinyan, why would we say such a thing? So Rashi over here brings that we really had before in the Gemara, that the Gemara said that this Mishnah could be speaking about a case that besides the actual document itself that has the signatures of Goyim, there's also Eidei Mesira here. There are Eidim that are here that are witnessing when you give over the shtar to the buyer. So that itself could be the reason why the shtar itself, or the giving over of the shtar, creates the kinyan. But the Gemara over here considers that answer we said before to be a deichik, so it gives the other answers here. So let's see. So the Gemara answers, Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel is machadash and says, Dina the Malchusa Dina. We know the halacha that the laws that there are from a government, from the Goyish government that we live in, it has validity al pitaira, and therefore Shmuel says that regarding the validity of a shtar, because, as Rashi brought before, Goyim are also mitzvah, they're commanded in Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And one of the mitzvahs is to establish courts. And therefore, whatever document comes from a legal court has validity al pitaira, and therefore the shtar could now be used not only as a proof for a kinyan that took place, but it could actually be used as a shtar that creates an acquisition, an ownership. It creates the actual kinyan itself. That's part of the koyach that comes out of Dina de Malchusa Dina. Or another answer the Gemara gives, that no, really, Taka, you're right. This shtar could only be used as a proof. It cannot be used to create the kinyan itself. So now when you read the Mishnah, you have to add one letter in the Mishnah. Tani chutz mi ke Gittin noshim. The Mishnah is saying that a document which is similar to a get, just like a get is not just a document of proof. The get creates the divorce. So too, any document that's here, not just as a proof, but it creates the kinyan, that is not valid in a Goyish court. So there's some Rishonim that say that the Ibai Yisrael is arguing with the Chiddush of Shmuel, that Dina de Malchusa Dina means that there's all kinds of laws of a country that you have to abide to, when it comes to taxes and other halachas, but not to say that because of Dina de Malchusa Dina that the actual document will have a koyach to create a kinyan. So there's an argument here about this. But other Rishonim say that it's not really an argument. The Gemara is just saying that our Mishnah is speaking in a case where there is no Dina de Malchusa about having these courts creating these documents. So if there's no such a court, and that's not the case of our Mishnah, so then you have to add this ke Gittin noshim, that the shtar is not going to be kosher if it's going to be used for a kinyan like a get for a isha.